that?
Screw your shoe. Come on, she's disabled.
All right, let me get her feet.
Everybody get out now. This is the Santa Rosa Police Department. It's time to go.
Sir, you gotta go!
By the time I got there, the sun had already come up, and I was just seeing a city that I knew so well and all these landmarks that I had remembered that were just literally gone, and they weren't still on fire. I mean, they had burned and the smoldering was already dying out. And so how quickly that fire moved through.
Hey, all these are cleared.
Okay, what about this one?
That one's cleared, not these.
Okay.
You know, at first, when I heard it from my in-laws, I thought it was just another wildfire and they were being evacuated out of company line of an abundance of caution. And by 5 or 6 in the morning, I realized it was something totally different that was unraveling.
Sonoma County Sheriff's Office, this is a mandatory evacuation order. Leave your homes. Sonoma County Sheriff's Office, mandatory evacuation order. Leave your homes.
The thing that struck me first is there was this tree out in front of their house that was my wife's and my mother-in-law's favorite tree. It just bloomed, and it's kind of right at the entryway into the house. And it was still there, but it was just completely black. The archway of where the house used to be was somewhat there, and that tree was there. And it just struck me that looking beyond that, I was just looking into a valley of kind of smoke and rubble and ash. And that used to be a structure. And it was the most surreal feeling that just kind of shook me and caused me to look around that area. And just, I had such a clear vision of the way it used to be and the way it looked and how quickly that happened. I mean, that was 6 a.m., 7 a.m. So between 2 a.m. and 7 a.m., a fire had come there, burned everything to the ground and left. And there was really nothing left that was even on fire.
501, this is Cedar 91. Just so you know, I can see movement on Lower Neal. I went back up on Wayland and can see traffic slowly moving.
Communities now need to be aware enough to where they evacuate themselves long before it's ever even an issue. I mean, wildfires aren't something that just sporadically pop up. Santa Rosa was different. It happened in the middle of the night. That's what caused a lot of the delay. But in normal scenarios, we know that there's a fire burning. The progression of the fire is slow enough to where typically communities can have some kind of idea that there's possibly going to be evacuations, that's the time to go. Don't wait for that evacuation order. Don't wait to where it's just the last minute.
Get out! Get out!
Us staying at home isn't making your property any more or less safe. It's just making you more unsafe.
Optimal parking lot, let's go! Get out of your cars, let's go!
One of the things that struck me about the campfire, at least in Santa Rosa and what I saw that morning, was that the sheer number of people it takes to clear roadways for emergency personnel and to get telephone poles out of the roadway and power lines out of the roadway and to conduct evacuations and to constantly be kind of one step ahead of saving lives is such a mass amount that there was no police officers in intersections directing people out. You know, people had to be self-reliant. They had to have their own evacuation plans and their own personal plans.
Sir, if I want to leave, can I drive out of here? Yes. Down Pence? I would. Nothing's blocked yet. Paradise, Sam 14.
Sam 14, go ahead.
All patients at Feather River have been evacuated. They're working on staff now.
There were still senior centers that were being evacuated, and seeing the transportation issues around that, it just really hit home for me how we needed to prepare our community so that we didn't have just this large mass of people that were waiting for us to come save them when we likely weren't going to be there.
Any directive, I'm still here at Wayland and Neal. It's gridlocked and the flames are getting really close to Neal.
When I watched the evacuations, Paradise, there's a video of an officer walking down the middle of the street and telling people, abandon your cars, get out of your cars. And he starts giving them a collection point or a spot where he's trying to get them to walk to this particular shopping center. And I can almost see the hesitation in people's faces about willing to get out and abandon their vehicles because they just hadn't thought that through as being a scenario.
Pull up to that stop sign and just stop. Don't go north, just stop because we're trying to clear the power lines. In case the fire comes this way, we're stuck here.
Why aren't we moving?
Ma'am, please, I can't. We're stuck here, okay? Just take my word for it. Just move up to the right.
You go from 0 to 100 miles an hour in a second. Your brain has this way of kind of shutting down all these extra peripheral functions and just lets you kind of get into this flight or fight mode. And that's great for survival, but the downside is that cognitive thought is one of the things that kind of narrows, and you get this tunnel vision. And that I think that happens to people if they don't have a plan. There's no doubt that people are on edge from those tragedies that have occurred and are now just waiting for what's going to happen in Truckee and when it's going to happen. And so we're at the perfect time to try and talk about this and work through this as a community, because it hasn't happened here yet.
People, as you can imagine, come to the area and they maybe have their week off, and the last thing on their mind is disaster prevention, and they're thinking about the fun that they're going to have, and they may walk into the middle of the summer season when fire danger is high here in Truckee, and we are at heightened alert, and people that live in the area may be aware of critical fire weather that's going on. And people need to take ownership, I believe, of the weather conditions and understanding what critical fire weather is. And NOAA out of Reno, for example, they put out excellent weather information and excellent red flag information that alert us in advance, and they talk about the critical fire weather that is coming our way.
Follow the line of traffic. We're trying to clear everything up. It's stuck now, but that's where we're working. There's really no safe spot anywhere. It's just this point where it is what it is till they get the road cleared, man. We're all in it together at this point.
On those days, the most important thing is to be vigilant and to be ready to go. When we talk about milling time, the time that it takes for a person to pull the trigger and get out of their house, we want to make sure that people have thought about that already on those days, and they're especially ready. Fires move very quickly through that light vegetation that you see in some of those pictures, and when the fire moves into bushes and grass, pine needles around homes, it'll move quickly and ladder itself right into the home and start a fire on the outside of the house.
I don't know if there's been an evacuation order from Gilead yet.
One of the problems with that is that the home not only burns down, it creates more embers and a large ember show that allows more fires downwind to start. It is a downward spiral. What we're most concerned about are on the red flag days, a fire that starts in a person's backyard from somebody playing with matches, or a barbecue that starts a fire, or an escaped campfire. Those fires can move very quickly through the neighborhood and outpace the ability of the resources of fire and police to be able to get in the neighborhood and do the things that we want to do. So in those cases, people really need to be prepared to take action on their own.
Yeah, I got multiple structures on fire down here on Clark, South Valley.
I think that a lot of people envision something that there's going to be this order to an event. And that's true 99, 95% of the times, but the reality is when the really bad one hits, that's not what it looks like. And that's what we need our community thinking about.
Do you think I should try to get to my car with her and drive out of here, or should I catch a ride with someone out of here?
What the evacuation plan is for us is it allows us to be more accurate about when we start to evacuate people. It's about understanding the fire science. It's about having strong relationships with our fire department to know kind of how much time we have. It's understanding, the roadways and the evacuation times of neighborhoods. That's the plan, but there's never a way to publish a binder or a book and then let our community know, yeah, this is the plan for your house and your neighborhood. That personal plan, or what we call evacuation guides, that's what our community needs to embrace, because it's specific to you.
If this burn's controlled, we'll be in good shape.
We're going to do everything we can to firm up and enhance our evacuation planning and our staffing levels and our understanding of those red flag days and those wind-driven event days, but we can't create those personal plans. That's every single person in our community creating that for themselves.
We're all stuck here together. We can't go north, we can't go south. We may have something coming from this way. We're unloading this trailer, surrounding it with soda in case we need a place to hover down.
There's three things. I think the first is you have to develop a personal plan. And whether you do that with a guide that's online, or you just sit down and intuitively kind of figure out your own, you have to have a plan for your family. And the second is you have to reach out to whatever platform your government entities use to communicate. For us, that's Nixle. Nevada County, it's Code Red. For Placer County, it's Everbridge. But you have to subscribe to those services so that you're getting that information constantly. And then the third is that paradigm shift. My recommendation to people is they always have it with them. It's on the Notes app of their phone, or it's in a Word document on their phone, but it's not a piece of paper that's on the refrigerator, because you might not be where that piece of paper is.
The most important thing to think about is that we're all in this together. Government can't do it alone. Local government, regional government, state government, federal government, community groups, business, homeowners, builders, and especially every individual who works, plays, and lives here needs to think about this issue and be prepared.
One of the things I go back to all the time is this kind of like fabric of community and neighborhood. It's so critical that one of your redundancy plans is to make sure that your neighbor knows that this event is going on, and to know who your neighbor is, and to make sure that they're starting their plan into motion. And I mean, that's really what community is all about. Nobody ever died from a wildfire because they left too early, right? And you have to be willing to leave early. You can't get caught into the fact that you staying is somehow going to save your house, or that you can't, leave your possessions behind. It's really life over limb. Preservation of your life is where your mindset has to be.
So, the battery probably burned out during the fire, and it's been telling us about it ever since. And I just decided